we ready? Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Jennifer Jerome. I'll be hosting this evening. Welcome to Ottawa Children's Storytelling Festival. This event is hosted by Odawa's Early On Children's Programming and also our Ottawa StoryTellers program. And we would like to thank our partners who participated in planning and making this festival work. The Ottawa StoryTellers, Ottawa Public Library, Odawa Native Friendship Center, Centre Jules Légué, and the French Catholic School Board of Eastern Ontario, and Les Sources of Francophone Storytellers, CCCAO. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are here in Ottawa on unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. The people of the Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia, and their stories, culture, and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Odawa Native Friendship Center and the Ottawa Storytellers honor the peoples, the land, and the stories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. The Odawa Native Friendship Center and the Ottawa Storytellers honor the valuable contributions of all First Nation, Inuit, Métis, past and present to this land. The tellers for this evening are keen to share their stories with you. Sorry, I don't have names. Thank you to the tellers and the many partners and sponsors who have made it possible for us to hear these stories. Thanks to our partners, the Ottawa Storytellers, Ottawa Public Library, Odawa Native Friendship Center, Centre Jules Légué, the French Language Catholic School Board of Eastern Ontario, and Les Sources of Francophone Storytellers. Miigwech.
Hello, my name is Denise. I'm from the Ottawa Storytellers, and I'm honored here to be here at the Odawa Center to share their tradition of storytelling. I'm obviously just a beginner and a novice, but my heart is full of fascination, just like the children in front of us. I'd like to present Daniel Richer, who will present his stories of the day. He's coming from Montreal?
This morning, yeah.
Just this morning.
Okay.
So I pass you to Daniel.
Thanks. Thank you. Now, could I invite you to get closer? I mean, for all storytellers, if we feel the energy, it's always better for us.
I was a little bit late on that, sorry.
That's okay. That's why I have a big mouth. So, quick, honey, sego. My roots are Abenakis and Dakota. Abenakis is Quebec, Dakota is Manitoba. And where I come from, it's a little different from where you come from. See, we don't have 4 seasons, we have 6 seasons. Because we don't follow the Roman calendar, we're not Romans. We follow the cycle of life. And Mother Earth has always been very generous. Yeah, I know, I'm standing up and you expected people to be sitting down. Okay. I'm a francophone, we get up. So, the 6th season is what you call winter, and that we unfortunately just started. And we call it the long sleep. The animals sleep, Mother Earth sleeps. That's why she has a blanket of snow, so that they can dream. And that's when we used to share the legends. Now, they used to take out the bag of marvel. The bag of marvel was a bag in which you would find roots and stones and flowers and feathers and pelts and all kinds of things. And they'd go to a child and they'd say, okay, pick something at random. The wind will guide you. And without looking, they would pick something and they'd say, oh, raven feather. It's because the raven wants me to tell you the story of the raven and the moon. And that's how we would choose the stories. That's how we would choose our lessons. Well, I brought my bag of Marvel, but I didn't bring pieces because I don't like pieces. I like little animals that I raise myself. You guys are not afraid of animals, are you?
No.
Good. Well, you really don't need to worry because I spoke to the people of the Storytelling Festival in Odawa, and they said that they have a really good insurance. And anyway, they haven't bitten anyone since this morning. So, my friend is called Amik. Can you say it?
Amik.
Okay. Shh, don't make noise. Amik. Oh. Come on. Hey. I'm waking him up. He's not very happy. Say.
Beaver. I never had a beaver.
This is Amik. Now, Amik is beaver, right? Algonquin. And Amik, well, he loves to work. As soon as he sees the grandfather appear in the sky, he starts working. He cuts down the trees, he pulls the trees, he builds a dam, he builds a house, he feeds his family, protects his family, and then he does it again. He cuts down the trees, he pulls the trees, he builds a dam, builds a house, feeds his family, protects his family, and then he does it again. Now, his best friend is Nijik. Can you say it? Nijik's a little river otter. Now, the little river otter, well, he loves to work, but mostly he loves to have fun. Do you like to have fun?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw you. Yes, you do. And he did too. And Nijik, when it's really hot outside, you know what he does? He finds really cool stream or river or lake, and he goes swimming. And when he feels good, well, he goes on the beach, he lies on his back, and he gets a tummy tan. Yeah. Now, what he likes even more is he loves to slip and slide. You guys like to slip and slide? Yeah. Well, he likes to slip and slide. Like when he finds high grass, he runs in the grass, he slides in the grass. It tickles his tummy, and he finds that funny. If he finds some flowers, well, he'll run into flowers, he'll slide in the flowers, and then he smells good, and his wife likes that. Yeah. Oh, but mostly, you know what he prefers? You know what he likes more than anything at all? He loves to slip and slide in fresh mud. Oh, if he finds fresh mud, he runs in the mud, he rolls in the mud, and when he's covered in mud, he gets on his back and he gets a tummy tan while he sleeps. Woo. Well, one day, Nijik was trying to sleep and he couldn't do it because he kept hearing a lot of noise. Now, he knew who was making the noise. It was his best friend. So at one point, he got enough and he said, Amik, look, it's a nice day. I found a nice stream. The water is so good. And I found some fresh mud. So how about you and I, we rest today? How about you come and sleep beside me on the beach? And Amik said, oh, I'd like that. But I can't. I got to cut the trees, pull the trees, build a dam, build a house, feed the family, protect the family, then do it again. Well, Nijik said, I know him. If I don't find something to do, he'll keep on doing it. I know. Amik, how about you and I, we build something together? And Amik said, oh, I'd like that. What? He said, well, how about you and I, we build the biggest, the best, the fastest slide that this forest has ever seen. And Amik liked that. He said, oh yes. Oh, but I can't because I got to cut the trees, pull the trees, build a dam, build a house, feed the family, protect the family, and then do it again. Well, Nijik said, okay, if you can't do it, you can do it. What? He said, well, we've seen you build dams. They're really nice. They're solid. We've seen you build houses, but we've never seen you build a slide. So maybe, just maybe, it's because you just can't do it. Oh! Hey! I can build anything, anywhere, anyhow. You want to build a slide? We're going to build a slide. You will see. This slide will be so fast. It'll be so high, it'll almost touch the sky. Oh, and Nijik was really excited because, when you build something with a friend, you're not really building, you're having an adventure. And so they worked together all day. They brought in the mud, they brought in the wood, they brought in the stones. Well, word got around the forest. Animals came from all over to look at them. The trees were filled with birds looking on. Even the fish were on the side of the water looking at this slide. And at the end of the week, well, the slide was ready. The slide was beautiful. And Nijig said, "Oh, Amik, it is the most beautiful slide I've ever seen. Amik, it's your first slide, right? So you should go up and try it first. You should go up and try it first." And Amik said, "Me? You want me to go up there? I can't. I gotta cut the trees, pull the trees, build a dam, build a house, feed the family, protect the family, and then do it again." Because you see, beavers don't get off the ground much, right? So he was a little afraid of the height. Well, Nijig pushed and pushed and pushed so much that he said, "Okay, I'll do it, but only once." So he went behind. There was this really, really high ladder. So he started going up and up and up and up, and when he looked down, ooh, it was really high. But he kept on going up and up and up and up, and when you look down, ooh, I mean really, really high. Well, when he got to the top, he was happy. He got to the edge. Oh, everybody looks so small. He closed his eyes and down he went. And he went really fast, which is really unusual for a beaver when it's out of the water. And so when he got to the ground, he must have enjoyed it very much because he started dancing. Yeah, he did a little beaver dance. Yeah, danced to the left and danced to the right, and he danced to the left and he danced to the right. Well, Nijig said, "Hey, I'm the best dancer of the forest. I will dance with you." So he started dancing to the left, dancing to the right, dancing to the left, dancing to the right. All the animals, all the birds, all the fish said, "Well, we want to join the dance too." So they started dancing. They danced to the left and they danced to the right. They'll dance to the left and they dance to the right. But one by one, they got really tired. One by one, they ran out of breath. One by one, they stopped dancing. All except Amik, who kept dancing to the left, dancing to the right, dancing to the left, dancing to the right. Well, Nijig looked at him and he said, "There's something wrong. He doesn't seem to enjoy this." And he looked at him and he said, his eyes are filled with water. So at one point he said, "Amik, why are you crying?" And Amik said, "Well, you know, when you build something for the very first time, you discover things about yourself and about the project. I discovered that my teeth, they're really strong. Yeah, I can cut down pretty much any tree. My arms, hey, my arms are so strong, I can lift my own weight in wood. That's a lot. My legs, well, my legs, they're very, very strong, and I can push mud all day, no problem. But I just discovered something. My bum, my little derriere, it is very delicate. And I discovered something else. When you built a slide made entirely of wood." See, all the adults are smiling about this time because it all happened to you, didn't it? When you built a slide made of wood, you gotta watch out for splinters because they hurt. Well, everybody was laughing, and Amik was really upset, and he said, "Hey, stop!" He said, "I will show you that this is the best slide this forest has ever seen, and there are no more splinters. I hope, I hope, I hope." So he went behind, went up and up and up, up and up and up, up and up and up. And when he got to the top, he stopped at the edge. He said, "What if I forgot even one splinter? Ooh, that will hurt." And then he thought and he thought and he thought, and then he had the idea. Ding! In those days, beavers were not like today. They used to have a big furry tail. Yeah! And so he pulled the tail under his bum and he sat down on it. It really tickled. And then he got to the edge, he closed his eyes, and down he went. And he must have enjoyed it because he went back a second time and a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time. And he only stopped when he saw that everyone was laughing at him again. And he said, "Hey, what?" And Nijig said, "Amik, you've got a problem. Look behind you." He looked to his left, he didn't see anything. He looked to his right, he didn't see anything. He said, "What?" And Nijig said, "I'm sorry, I'm so nervous, I didn't express myself right. I should have said, Amik, my friend, look at your behind you." And that's when he saw it. His nice bushy tail, was now as flat as a pancake. It was bald. There were no more hair on it. And ever since that day, beaters have had a flat, hairless tail. To remind them that in life, if you don't take time to enjoy, well, sometimes life takes time to enjoy you. So, as you can see, I adapt First Nation stories. And so that was for you. And now for you older children. Because when we listen to story, we're all children. We are. We go back to a time when things were simpler. Now for us, the earth is our mother. And the sky is our father. The grandmother is the moon. And the grandfather is the sun. And they've had millions of children because they love each other so much. So we have the stars. And for the longest of time, grandmother and grandfather were side by side. Every day, grandfather would tell grandmother that he loved her, that she was beautiful, that he couldn't live without her. And every day, grandmother would smile like only a grandmother can smile, like only the moon can smile. And every day they would dance, and when they would dance, we would know it because they would change places, and we had day and night, day and night. Well, after a long, long time, grandfather stopped telling grandmother that he loved her, that she was beautiful. Oh, he still felt it. He just stopped saying it. He thought she had heard it so much, she must be tired of hearing it. But she wasn't. She was actually quite sad. And she thought that he would understand, but he didn't. So at one point, he closed his eyes just for a second, and she disappeared on the other side of the world. He woke up almost immediately because he felt an emptiness in his heart. He couldn't remember opening his eyes and not being dazzled by her beauty, not feeling the warmth of her love. And so he started looking for her, calling out her name, "Grandmother, grandmother," but she didn't say anything. And every time she would see the sun appear at the horizon, she would run to the other side of the world. He would run and she would run away. He would run and she would run away. Well, when she left, she took all the children and the little children and the little children with her. And so he was so lonely at one point, he said, "I can't do it anymore." So he found a cave so deep that when he went inside, all colors of the universe disappeared. Light was no more. And so everything stopped. The birds couldn't fly. They kept running into trees. And the animals couldn't find food. The humans were lost. So at one point, he said, "Enough." He said, "Grandmother, we need to speak to you." And she said, "Yes." He said, "Grandmother, do you know that grandfather still loves you?" And she said, "Of course. He's my man." And they said, "Do you still love her? Do you still love him?" And she said, "Of course I do. He's my man." So she said, "So you'll let yourself be caught?" And she said, "No." And they said, "Why not? We can't go on like this." She said, "Because I like the fact that he's pining for me again. I like the fact that he says to everyone that he needs me. But don't worry, I'm going to send him some of his children, some of his grandchildren, and they'll tell him that if he keeps running after me, maybe one day I'll let him catch me again." Well, that night she sent down a couple of thousand children. She could afford it. She had many. And they were so eager to see their grandfather. They were going as fast as they could. We said, "Oh, look, shooting stars." And it stayed. And they were crying, "Grandfather, grandfather." He heard this from the bottom of his cave. He came out, and when he saw all his grandchildren coming towards him with their arms open, he smiled like only a grandfather can smile. He smiled like only the sun can smile. He smiled so brightly that he blinded the children. They kept going, and they ended up in the sea. Well, they were okay. They just lost their fire. They couldn't go back in the sky. But they were okay because they were in the arms of the mother, la mère, mother in French. And ever since that time, when grandfather goes to the other side of the world, she comes down and she sings a lullaby for her children here on earth. Hey, hey. We call it the sound of the waves, but it's actually the lullaby of the grandmother. And every night, well, she wraps them in her great blanket that we call la marée, the tide. And every morning, the grandfather pulls it back, and life goes on. And so does love. Negócio. Now, you probably noticed that I talk a lot with my hands, and it's not just because I'm a francophone, although it does help. But we forget that First Nation people created sign language. It's called actually hand talk. And there are tons of books if you have a chance. It is a beautiful language. Miigwech.
Can we get another round of applause for our storytellers? Thank you very much. So our
Safe
next,
travels, Daniel. Safe travels.
yeah, Danielle Riche, everybody. It's Riche. Yeah, I remember we actually did used to canoe with you to the island from the. I remember. So next, our storyteller is Simon Brascoupé, all the way from Kitigan Zibi, which is an hour and 25 minutes northwest of here, where I'm from. Simon is from the Algonquin Nation as well, and please welcome him.
So, Kwe, good to thank you for your wonderful stories. This is the perfect time of year to tell stories. I remember my grandmother telling us stories. We didn't have these fancy lights. We didn't have electricity, and we had these little kerosene lanterns, and they would be making noise, and we'd be sitting in our small house. We had a house that was maybe about as big, smaller than this space, and you'd go to bed in the middle of winter, and you'd wake up, and the water in your she remembers the water in your pails were frozen, and so were you. You didn't get out of bed, but I think it toughens you up, and so I'm gonna try to stick to beaver stories. You talked about beavers, and I'm gonna tell you all the beaver stories that I know, and I may make up a few. So I want you to be able to say that he just made that one up. So when you hear Algonquin people, they'll say, "We've been here since time immemorial." So when's time? The beginning of time. Do you know when the beginning of time is?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do? Good. When is it? You don't know? So here, we had glaciers. So in school, they're gonna teach you about glaciers. And Ottawa was under this big thing of ice, big blanket of ice. About 10,000 years ago, it started melting, and it started moving north. And then Ottawa was under a lake. And I'm not sure what the Algonquins called it, but in school you'll learn that it's the Champlain Sea. And it was about 100, where we sit now is about 150 feet of water above us. And that's when Wasajak, which is a trickster, was going around, and there were these big animals. Mastodons, you know about mastodons? Have you heard about those in school? They used to roam Canada about 10,000 years ago. Anyways, big like elephants. But there's also big beavers. So we had giant beavers, and these are real beavers. You can go to the Museum of Nature, and they got a skeleton of a giant beaver there. So they weighed about 600 pounds. So they were like 3 of me was a giant beaver. And Wasajak, who was this trickster, guess what he loved to eat? Beavers. He loved beavers. So one day he decides, I'm going to go and I'm going to eat a beaver. And so he went up the Ottawa River. It was called Zibi. And then he went up to where Mattawa is, and he went up into Quebec, and there was a giant beaver lodge in the middle of the lake. And do you know how do you get into the beaver lodge? Yeah, you know, you swim in the water, and the lodge has a hole under the water to get into the beaver's lodge. And so Wasajak decides, I'm gonna break the dam, and all the water's gonna run out, and I'll be able to get into the beaver's lodge. So he's working away, he breaks the dam, and the water runs out, and he gets so tired he falls asleep. And what happens when he falls asleep? You know what happens? The beaver escapes, and he wakes up and he gets really mad. He goes, oh, where's that beaver? I'm not gonna have a beaver for dinner. And so he followed the beaver down toward the Ottawa River and near Mattawa, and the beaver had made another lodge and had another dam. And so this time he brings a friend with him, and he tells his friend, I'm gonna work really hard and I'm gonna break that beaver's dam, and the water's gonna run out, and if I get tired and fall asleep, I want you to wake me up. And he says, I can do that. And so he's working really hard, he breaks the dam, and he falls asleep, and his buddy's trying to wake him up. Guess what happened? He couldn't wake up. You got it. He's shaking him and he's shaking him. And Wasajak didn't wake up. You know what? Wasajak, if we had this, if he was a storyteller, he would show up on time. He'd be here after everybody left. He'd come. So he was kind of a bit of like a human being. So Wasajak wakes up and he goes, where's the beaver? And he said he escaped again. And he got so mad, he blamed his friend. He said, you didn't wake me up. And you know what he did? He kicks his friend in the butt, and his friend goes way, way up into the sky, and he turns into a rock. And he comes down and he lands on the earth. And do you see those rocks in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
You see these boulders?
Yeah.
So my daughters used to ask my dad, where did all these boulders come from? And he said, oh, just one day, it just rained all these boulders. So one day, all these boulders that you see just rained. Anyway, so Wasajak chases the beaver down toward near Pembroke. And near Pembroke, the beaver had built another dam and it's another lodge. But this time, they're getting older and older. So this happened over many years. And he gets there, he breaks the dam, but this time the beaver, instead of running away, he runs onto the side of the Ottawa River, and he turns into this hill. So do you see that, you know the hills on the side of Ottawa River? Look at them, they're in the shape of a beaver. Yeah. So even look at the Gatineau Hills, you look at the Gatineau Hills, they're kind of beaver shaped. And so what this is for the adults. So the beavers built dams over thousands of years. And these dams built little lakes, little ponds. And so the beaver actually, they call them eco-engineers. And these beavers formed the whole Ottawa region. We got all these streams and lakes and all that. They made them over thousands of years. There's a beaver dam in Saskatchewan, and you know how wide it is? Anybody know about this beaver dam? It's almost 1 kilometer wide. It's a big, big beaver dam. And when the beaver makes their dams, it makes a little ecosystem. And there's more plants, there's more animals. Even the bigger animals like deer, they have more food. So it makes it improves the environment. So that's my Wasajak story. Now, there's a beaver that lives near my house. I live across from Carleton University, and there's a pond there, and there's a beaver lodge. If you're ever in Brewer Park, you can go over there and check out this lodge. It's quite beautiful. And do you know when the beaver works? Anybody know when the beavers are really busy? You do? or nighttime, you got it. So today I was talking to somebody, I don't know what we were talking about, and we were talking about beavers, and they said, never eat beaver in the evening, because they work. And if you eat a beaver in the evening, you're gonna be awake all night. So I told my students when I'm marking your papers or you're emailing me in the middle of the night, I'll eat beaver that night so I can respond to your questions. So the beaver there's a beautiful beaver lodge, and there's a tree. It's about this big. Do you think a beaver can eat a tree that big and knock it down? It can. So about a month ago, I could see the beaver marks on the tree, and it started eating the tree, and it was about that wide. The middle of it was about this wide, but there was a piece that went to the edge of the tree, and the bark was still there. So I was figuring it had cut it that way so that the tree would fall into the river. And I was going to go there today to check it out, but my wife had gone, and she said almost all the limbs are gone on this tree. A tree would have fell down, it would have been from here to that wall over there. So beavers are really industrious. And in a lot of Anishinaabe culture, the beaver is the symbol of wisdom, right? And why is the beaver wise? The beaver is wise because it uses all its tools. If you look at its teeth are red. You know why the teeth are red in a beaver? Usually these guys know. Why would a beaver have red teeth? Because there's iron in its teeth. That's why it has such strong teeth, iron. And we were a couple of years ago. I was doing some workshops, art workshops at Kitigan Zibi, and we were painting beavers. And just about everybody that I saw told me the same story. They said, you know, one time Algonquins didn't have canoes. And you know where the inspiration for a canoe came from? A beaver. So beavers are really good swimmers, but somebody was going to, I guess the Sajak finally caught the beaver, and he was going to cook it, and he opens up the chest cavity of the beaver, and there were ribs in it. And that's what inspired the making of the canoe. And what kind of paddles? We're going to find out. Anybody know what kind of paddles there are? Any type of paddle? The answer is easy. The beaver tail paddle. So the beaver tail paddle is one of the most common paddles. You can look at Mount Equipment Co-op and Google beaver tail paddle. And there's another paddle which is called otter tail. So the beaver tail is for being like on a lake or on the river, and the otter tail is when you're going through rapids. So you need that pointy one to push your canoe around and protect yourself. So those are the two types of paddles, and they're inspired by the beaver. The beaver's pretty good. And if you go down to Pembroke, there's hundreds. If you're an archaeologist and you're digging around it, you'll find hundreds of beaver teeth near Pembroke. And it's because my ancestors were using the beaver teeth to carve wood to make canoes. It was a basic tool. And today I should have brought them with me. Anyways, I have my grandfather's. It's called it's a knife. What do they call it? Crooked knife. And it's like a beaver tooth. And the beaver teeth inspired the crooked knife. So I went up to Dene territory in northern Saskatchewan, And I was talking about this, and one of the taxi drivers was an elder, and he says, "I know how to make a crooked knife out of beaver teeth." And so I went over to his house, and he had this beautiful moose antler, and he says, "I'm going to make your crooked knife out of this moose antler." And so he cut a tip off of it, and then he fastened the beaver's head onto the antler, and you use it like an adze, like a little axe that goes like this. And they are really sharp. So if you look at, if you come into my neighborhood, you can see where the beaver's been eating the trees, and it's just like it's like somebody took a knife and was cutting it to soft butter, with their teeth. So am I running out of beaver stories? I don't think so. And I've got, I don't know how long I'm supposed to be up here, but anyway, so I've got more stories. So I'm going to tell you a story about my grandson. And my grandson's name is Polar Bear. And so my daughter, when she got pregnant, she said, I want to have this baby have a First Nations name when it's born, and I want you to give the baby that name. And so I had no idea of what I was doing. So I asked a friend of mine, how do you come up with a name? And he says, "Oh, you'll dream it." Have you ever dreamt a name? And anyway, so I said, okay, I'll dream this baby's name. And so I started having dreams. And guess what I was dreaming about? His name is Polar Bear. I started dreaming about, I didn't dream about polar bears, but I started dreaming about bears. And I'm an artist. So I dreamt I was going up to Kitigan Zibi, and I would climb up this little hill, and on the top was rocks, rock outcrop. And when I looked at the rocks, a bear came up. A mother bear came up, and then a little over to the right of the mother, a baby bear came up. And I had this dream several times. And one of my other daughters was dreaming about bears also. I live in Ottawa, and so we have a cedar hedge around our house, and my daughter was dreaming about bears, and they were in the cedar hedge. And my wife was saying, bring the cats in because the bear's going to eat the cats. And so she was worried about, well, we had 2 cats then. Anyway, so she'd bring the cats in. So over several months we were having these dreams. And then in March, I was in Toronto, and I had the good fortune of being in a room, and there were a lot of elders, and they were all praying. So the praying took about a half hour. Anyway, so they were praying, and I'm sitting there, I had my eyes closed, and guess what happened? I could see the bear. I saw the mother bear come up. I saw the baby bear come up. And then all of a sudden, they started spinning like this, and it turned black. And I think, what does that mean? That can't be good, it's black, And then, so I got worried about my daughter, because she was about to deliver the baby. It was around 9:30. And so a little while later, I'd forgotten all about it, and then it happens again. This bear comes up, mother bear comes up, a baby bear comes up, and it spins, and this time it turns white. And then I get a text about 5 minutes later. One of my daughters was with her sister and the family, and said, Emily just had a baby. And so I go, oh no, now I've got to name the baby. And so there was a couple there from Chisasibi, and I explained what my daughter asked, and she said, well, I'll name the baby. And so she said, we're gonna name it Bear, but because it's snowing, because I had just snowed outside, there was snow everywhere, she was gonna name it Polar Bear. And she said, that's her name. So she gave my grandson her name. So his name was Polar Bear. So I came back to Ottawa, and I saw my daughter, and she said when she was delivering the baby, his head was so big it got stuck. And then the doctor that was there was like a new doctor, and they're going, getting a little excited and a little afraid that, oh no, we're gonna have to operate. And so about 5 minutes later, the baby's head got unstuck, and the baby was born. And my daughter said when she looked outside the window, it was just white. It was a snow squall. And so that's his name, Polar Bear. And so you can dream a name. So we were talking about this earlier, that if you want a nice day, you go around and you ask your friends, when you were born, what kind of a day was it? It was sunny out. Oh, good. Let's go out and play. So, or if you want it to rain, you find somebody that it rained that day, and you go and play with them. And it's a fairly common story about who you're going to play with. Anyway, so in the spring, a couple of years later, the snow had all melted, and he got upset. He goes, where did all the snow go? And my daughter said, well, it's spring. And then later that day, it snowed. He was happy that the snow had come back. And so my grandson, this summer, his brother had a dream. He says, I dreamt Papa's name. And so this summer they gave me another name. I got so it's my grandson. I didn't wear it tonight, but anyway. So they gave me a pendant with the animal's name that's on the pendant. And so even children, he's 4 years old, can give you a name. And my daughter asked an elder friend of hers, can he do that? And he goes, of course he can, because they're closer to the the spirit world and closer to the Creator. So everything a baby does is right. So that's the my grandson's name. What time do you want me to? About 10 after? Oh, okay. I'll keep telling stories. So I'm going to tell you stories that my grandmother told me, and my mother, for some reason, told me at the same story this fall. So I've been my mother just turned 96, so I've been videotaping her telling stories, and they always would tell. My grandmother would always tell this story, and she said that there was a young couple, and they were beautiful, a beautiful man and a beautiful young woman, and they would look in the water and they would spend all day looking at themselves because they were so beautiful, and they were going to have a baby. So when the baby was born, and I can't believe this, they said that it was the ugliest baby you'd ever could imagine. There are no ugly babies, right? I don't think so. So this must have been especially. Anyway, so they had this baby, and it was so ugly they didn't want to raise it. So the grandmother takes the baby and raises the baby, and he grows up to be this really handsome young man. And she taught him all these values, so he knew the 7 grandfather teachings, and so he was beautiful inside and out. And when when he got old enough, these families said, his mother and dad said, "Oh, we want you back now," and he said, "No." And so my mother said, "So it's more important to be beautiful inside than just beautiful outside." So why would my grandmother be telling me this story? She'd always, we'll get back to that. So she would also tell me another story, and she said there was this young man with short legs. And he couldn't run very fast, and that was me, and she said he would always race with his buddies, and he was always the last one to cross the finish line. And so he went around and he tried to find medicine to be a better runner. And he found somebody that said, I can give you medicine to make you a better runner, but if you win, you have to be humble, you know? And he says, I can do that. And so he's taking this medicine every day, and then there was this race, and he ran the race, and he won. And was he humble? Do you know what humble is? Oh, I won, thank you. You know? And so he got so excited that he starts going, yay, I won this race. And you know what happened to him? He got sick. Anyways, so I think it was those days, if we were, the least humble we were, or we were bad, the boy got really sick, the boy got really, really sick, the boy got really, really sick and died. And so my grandmother and my parents were trying to teach me to be humble, you know, to be a humble person. And so that's not so bad to be. But I always thought, you know, when you're in the city, if you're racing, like here in Ottawa, and you win a race, would anybody know I was happy if I was humble? You know, like he's always so, well, I guess there's a way to do that. So you got to develop that humbleness, but also being prideful about your accomplishments. So that's the trick. But often, you see people winning a race and they kind of jump around, get all excited. So my parents were trying to teach me some values, and I think they're particular values like Anishinaabe values. You see Anishinaabe, Algonquin men are humble. You know, you got to be kind to people. You got to be nice to your friends, even though when you're young, you're not always kind or nice to your friends. But I've had friends that were always nice to me. So I'm just trying to think of I'm getting away from the beaver stories. I've got one last story that I'm going to tell you. Ooh, where'd that go? I was looking at the clock and it was 5:02, and now it's 5 after. So I've got one more story to tell you, a beaver story. So a friend of mine, or did I tell you that? She dreamt about the beavers. Did I tell you that story? I think I told it too many times today. Anyways, so it bears repeating. So she was dreaming about giant beavers. And she didn't realize the word giant beavers yet. She said, I'm dreaming about giant beavers. And I said, well, there were giant beavers. They're called megafauna, and they weighed about 600 pounds. They were about big as bears. And so she kept getting these dreams kept coming back. And then she was sick. She had gotten cancer, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you've got a really bad case of cancer. It's like the highest level. And so she went and found somebody that did beaver medicine for cancer. And a beaver eats medicine, so that a tree is medicine. Like I've got a large tree in front of my house, and it's good for diabetes. You take the bark and you can make medicine out of it. Anyway, so he made this medicine out of four different. It was made from 4 different trees, but it was from a beaver. And so she was given this beaver medicine, and after a few months, the cancer had completely disappeared. So the doctor wanted to know what she was taking, so she didn't tell him. Anyway, so it just shows you that the natural world, there's medicines in the natural world that is there to protect us. And My grandmother used to tell me scary stories, but I'm not going to tell you scary stories. Well, maybe one. Want to hear a scary story? Yeah. So she would say, "Stay out of the woods at night." I don't know what's so dangerous about being in the woods at night. But anyway, she said, "Stay in the house. Don't go in the woods at night. There's this flying head." And she said the flying head goes from tree to tree, and it's got big teeth and fire coming off. It's just a head, and it just loves to eat kids. So I still go to the woods. I'm going. Maybe I better watch out. Anyway, so I'm glad. I don't know if you're all tired or you're listening to me, but anyways, thank you. So be rich.
Thank you, Simon. We very much enjoyed your stories, especially like knowledge sharing about the history of beavers. Up next, we have Mary Gunner from Moose Factory. She's going to be telling some stories. Mary is also from the Cree Nation, so please welcome Mary Gunner.
Hi everybody, my name is Mary, and today I'm going to tell you a story about one of my adventures I had with my aunt. Every summer my Aunt Minnie would come and visit us and take us for the weekend. So one day she came knocking on the door, and I answered it. It was like my Aunt Minnie, and she asked if me and my sister wanted to go to Bitanaga, which is a Cree word for inlet. And we were like, yeah, because we loved going to spend time with our aunt. She always did fun stuff with us. So we packed our clothes, walked down the road to my other aunt's, Aunt Lucy's, to get the supplies. And then we put them all in a big wagon, walked down to the river, jumped in the boat. It was just a small boat, like a 10 horsepower little motor. So we all jumped in, packed all the stuff. It took about 20 minutes to go up the river, and then we finally got to Bitanaga. We got off the boat, got all the supplies out of the boat, carried them up the hill to our cabin. My aunt made a fire in the wood stove. We unpacked, and then she sent us outside to go look for wood. She said it has to be rotting wood, she said, because we're going to smoke some fish. So me and my sister and my cousin went in the bush and started collecting wood. We collected a whole bunch, and then we brought it to the fire, and then we helped my aunt fix the drying racks. And here's a picture of how we dry fish. So after we finished fixing up the drying racks, getting the wood, we went in the boat, and she drove us all the way to where she sets her nets. So she was steering the boat, and my sister was pulling the net into the boat, and I was collecting them and putting them in the bucket, and that took about half an hour. And then we drove all the way back to the cabin, carried the fish all the way back up the hill. She started the fire, and then she gave us a knife, and there was this big table there, and me and my sister started cleaning the fish. So we had to scrape all the scales off first, and then we had to cut open the fish, take all the guts out, and we put them all aside, and then we were putting them on the racks like this. But ours were flat. And then we dried the fish, and then we were watching the fire, and we had to put tarps around it too so that the smoke would stay in. And then after we were letting the fish dry, we went inside, and she cleaned all the fish guts. I don't know if you guys ever, it's like caviar. But she cleaned all the fish guts, put them in a big black cast iron frying pan, put it on the stove, and she cooked it for about 2 hours. But it was good. That was my favorite snack. That was one of my favorite things that I like to do when we went fishing with my aunt. but it was hard work. Scaling the fish, my hands were frozen sometimes by the time I was done. Yeah, and I have one more story. This is another story about my aunt. Me, my sister, and my cousin Hazel went with my aunt for the weekend. She took us to Moosonee this time, the mainland. And she said, we're gonna go raspberry picking. This was in August, because that's when raspberries come out. So we were driving around all over Moosonee looking for a good berry bush to find. And she finally found one. We were driving up the railroad tracks. And we were looking out the truck. We got out and she's like, there's some berry bushes over there. And we looked and our eyes got all big. We seen a whole bunch of raspberries, big juicy ones. We were so happy. We got all excited, jumped out of the truck with our containers, went running down the hill, and my cousin Hazel was in front of me. And she went running down the hill right into the berry bushes and she stepped on a hornet's nest.
Oh no.
So she turns around and starts screaming, bees, bees, bees. And she went running back and we turned around and ran back too, jumped in the truck, and my poor cousin Hazel had got a bee sting right on her eye. But my aunt said, oh, that's okay, she said. So she drove up further up the railroad tracks and we found another berry bush and we collected a whole bunch of berries. And those are some of my favorite things about my summer when I was young. Was going on adventures with my aunt. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Jennifer Jerome.
Yeah, me. I've been having trouble with my sleeves all day.
Jennifer Jerome will be sharing a lovely story with us today. And I would like to give you some sage and say thank you for sharing your spirit and your knowledge and your story today.
Miigwech. Thank you. So I'm Jennifer Jerome and I am also from Kitigan Zibi. Born and raised there, and I've been living in Ottawa for a little over 10 years now. Today I'm going to read you one of my favorite stories from this book, The Gift in the Making. It's a collection of Anishinaabe stories retold by Leanne Simpson. So, okay, I thought I broke it. Just the tobacco tie. So, this is my friend Shagag. Everybody look familiar? Shagag is skunk in Algonquin. And today my story is about Wiskejak and Shagag. So be prepared, it's gonna be funny. Just free my hands here. All right, so the story I'm gonna tell is Shagag's powerful medicine. Nibakade! 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 Nana Bush yelled, or we'll go with Wiskejak today. I am so hungry, said Wiskejak. Hunting seemed like too much work. Fishing seemed like too much work. Snaring rabbits seemed like too much work, and even ricing seemed to be like too much work, especially since last fall. So Wiskejak didn't put any food in his cache, and all of the maple sugar from last spring was too good to save. He already gobbled his up. There was no berries or roots or plants to be seen anywhere. Nibakade! I'm hungry! And he looked over and thought, that's Shagag, the skunk. She never seems to do too much work, he thought. I never see her working too hard, and she always has food to eat. Hey Shagag! Hey Shagag! Hey Shagag! Wiskejak hollered as he went off to find the skunk. He found her sleeping in her den, and then he called out, Shagag, I need some of your powerful skunk medicine. I'm hungry and lazy, and I think you have all this skunk medicine you should share. Thought Shagag. It's a very good thing to share, and I can see that you're very hungry, but my skunk medicine is powerful, and it takes a long time to learn how to use it, so you gotta be careful. Oh, I'm very good at being careful, replied Wiskejok. I'm exceptionally good, like, no really. Now how, said Skog. I'll share, but you have to agree to follow my instructions and no tricks. And then Wiskejok passed Skog his sama, just like I got here. Pass it on. Yes, 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 he said, I'm also very good at following instructions. I follow them right down to the letter, and I never ever make mistakes. You can count on me. Jigog wasn't so sure. She's heard this all before. But she thought, I'll give him a chance. Are you sure, Wiskejok? Are you sure you can follow my instructions? No worries. And is how we say yes in Algonquin. So Jigog lifted her tail and transferred the skunk medicine into Nana Bush's butt. Wiskejok, there I go again. It took a few minutes, but then it happened. Oh, that Wiskejok thought he was something now with all that skunk power. Jigog told him to go to his lodge and then play his drum until the moose showed up. Moose is how we say moose in Algonquin as well. She said that he could use his new skunk medicine on Moose and have a big old feast. Wiskejok thanked Jigog and started to walk to his lodge, all proud of his new skunk power he was strutting through the forest. And remember what Simon had told us previously about having being humble with your gifts and your medicines and your powers. So as he was strutting through the forest, he thought he should at least test it out and see if it was working. So he decided to boogity some skunk medicine out at a tree nearby, just to test. So he leaned over and aimed at that tree and kaboom! That tree cracked right in half. And shouted Wiskejok, this is so awesome! Pretty soon he thought that the last test might have been a fluke, at least scientifically, so he did another boogity, and the medicine flew out of the lake. Kaboom! A beautiful fountain of water appeared. Nana Bush said, this is amazing! So pretty soon he thought, let's try the best 2 out of 3. Kaboom! A rock exploded into dust. Shouted Nana Bush, this is so wicked! So, pretty soon he thought, really, it is 4, that's a sacred number, right? I can't just stop at 3 because that would just leave things unbalanced. Things gotta come in force for the Anishinaabe people. So, once again, he did a boogity. And then this time, the skunk medicine flew out of the beaver's lodge, and kaboom! The logs were all up in the air and they flew and scattered everywhere. They even fell on the ground perfectly stacked into a wood pile. This is so rock and roll! cried Wiskejok. So he continued on to his lodge and he sat and played his drum. And just like Jigog had instructed, pretty soon Mo showed up, just as Jigog said he would. Nana Bush turned around and he tried to fart out his skunk medicine. But nothing happened. He tried again and again and again, and they were just regular old farts. No Jigog medicine, no power. Moose waited around to see if Nana Bush could get his act together, but after a while, Moose got bored and left. And then Wiskejok had to go back to hunting the hard way, but he remembered this event for a very long, long time. He carried it in his bones, and the next time someone gave him instructions, he tried his very best to be responsible. Meet Wedge. I hope you like that story. So I was listening to Simon's stories, and I have a little story I'd like to share about my grandmother grew up, I guess in like a village setting in the bush, and they were brought there to escape residential school. So they grew up in the camp. We had shacks, and every summer they would take us there. But when my grandma was about 9 years old, her little brother, which would be my great uncle, he went missing. And they were always told, same as us, not to play outside by the bush at night or not to go near the water at night, because there's spirits that are going to try and lure you away. There's little people that like children. They like to play with children and they act like children. So one day, my Uncle Patrick went missing, and the whole day, it rained. And the family had set out a search party, and my grandma really, really wanted to go and help. But they wouldn't let her because they were afraid that, she was gonna get lost too. So they made her stay home and also wait just in case he came home, and they went out for the day. And for 3 days, they had no luck, and it rained and it was cold. So on the 4th day, my grandma, her name was Emma, she really, really wanted to go, and they finally allowed her to go. So when they were walking through the bush, they were calling out for Patrick's name the whole time. Patrick! Patrick! And as they got further in, only my grandma could hear him calling her back by her name, Emma! Emma! But nobody else was able to hear his voice. So she led the group to him, and they found him sitting on top of a giant rock. And he was totally dry, he was clean, and he was fed, and he looked just fine. So they asked him, what happened? Who brought you here? And he pointed at something, but there was nothing there. And they said, he did. So they said, who? And they said, that man, and he won't let me go. But they didn't see a man. It was a spirit that only, I guess the children could see. So they picked Patrick up, and he was probably about 6 years old at the time, and they said he weighed as much as a full-grown man. And it didn't matter because they wanted to bring him home. And as they got closer to the village where my family was living, he felt light again as a child, and he said that that man or that spirit decided to let go of him and let him go back to the village with their family. So every year they had to do a feast, for my uncle and make sure that he wouldn't get taken again. Yes, we wish. So our next storyteller is Louise Prophet Leblanc. And please welcome her up. I'll let you introduce where you're from and all that.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't know I'd be telling tonight, but I would love to do that.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
She's awesome. Special guest.
I think what I'd like to suggest, maybe for our next storytelling, that we have a mic. And that'd be a little bit easier, especially for the little ones that get a little restless and want to tell their own little stories. Yeah, it was just so wonderful, and it was so nice to see Simon tonight. And we were talking about beavers, so I just want to say, Indian Dohoti. My name is Louise in English, but it's actually a French name, so figure that out. My grandmother was named Louise. That was, but she was Tlingit, so she was from the coast, and my mother is Northern Shoshone. She's a Dene, inland Dene woman from northeastern Yukon. So I say to you this evening, I say Indian Dohote, and that means how's the world treating you? Seems to be treating you okay. There's nice snacks here, the best coffee in town, People always say that Starbucks got the best, but no. Odawa Friendship Center has the best coffee. So I really want to thank Odawa for hosting this. And since I've moved here 20 years ago from the Yukon Territory, I've always wanted to have, and I guess I tried to dream it into existence, that there be storytelling at this wonderful place. A place of friendship, because every one of us is a story. Every one of us has a story in us. Every one of us is working on our story, like these young ones here. You're just at the beginning of your story, but before you came into existence, you were in the belly of your mother, in the womb of your mother, making stories. You even played a musical instrument. What was it? You had a little musical instrument that you heard in your mother. Little drum, right? All the while you were getting ready to come here. So you were playing music to yourself. We were playing music to ourselves, within ourselves, that was given to us by our mother and our father and the Creator. So we're all moving out on this beautiful sound of music, coming from the spirit world, coming from our ancestors. Our ancestors are guiding us into this world. I think this is always something that children don't maybe think about, or maybe sometimes young mothers don't think about. And being that I was a nurse and I worked on the maternity, I often would listen to the heartbeat of the child, and just to make sure the child was doing okay. So I heard this loudly in my ears, and so those stories of the coming of a child on the music of our ancestors, on the drum beat of our ancestors, was very evident to me. So tonight, what kind of stories? My indigenous name, my grandmother named me. And it's interesting that Simon was sharing all these wonderful stories of my people, beaver people. My name is Itso, which means beaver woman. You know, the beaver has got big teeth, eh? So sharp, as Simon has told us already. And when I was coming into puberty, I was about 12, 13 years old, and my cousin and I were living with my grandma for the summer. And living with your grandma for the summer, anybody's experience, that means you're going to work all summer. Okay. And I love working with my grandmother, because during that period she would tell us all kinds of stories, and she really brought out the fact that we were wonderful people. We weren't kids per se, in her way of thinking. She looked at us as a beautiful person who's going to give to the community. That's always what she told us. You're born to give away. That's the highest honor you can have, is to give away. Even if you have nothing, what can you give away? Your story, your song. If you even have nothing, you can still give a prayer. So all of us have something inside of us to give to other people. So I know tonight this mother, she said, please pray for my little girl. So I'm just going to say a little prayer for that little girl that's not well. I know there's lots of children that are not well right now in Ottawa. So in my language, I'll just offer this little prayer for not only the children, for their well-being, so that they'll be healed, but also for the parents, so that they remain calm, so that they trust that that medicine will come to them, and that people's love for them will bring them back to health. Ayara cho taringi, ayara cho taringi diugi kanu. So fun. So I've asked the Creator to come and bring good medicine, bring healing, and help the child be in touch with their ancestors to help them get better. You know, a lot of these times that I was with my grandmother, and she said, you know, we never had doctors. She said, everybody got a little doctor in them. And as Jennifer was explaining too in that story, even a little child has medicine that they can give to adults, to old people. And I know that I had a very good friend, and she is Inupiat. She's from the Aleutian Islands, and she had very powerful medicine right up till the time she died. And I asked her about that. I said, where did this come from? She said, you know, when I was a little girl, my people went out into the Aleutian Islands. They went out to get seals. But my grandmother was blind, so I was only 5 years old, but somebody had to stay with my grandma. And because she was blind, she wouldn't be able to take care of herself. So She said, I had the honor, I had the privilege of taking care of my grandmother. And she said there was a little lamp there. We were talking about lamps tonight too. She said a little coal oil lamp was beside her. And she didn't know. She had to get up and go to the bathroom, and she pushed over the lamp. She didn't know. And unfortunately, she said, my grandmother caught on fire. And she said, throw the blanket on me. Throw the blanket on me. So she said, I grabbed the sealskin blankets and I threw it on top of her. But she was burned quite badly, she said. And as a 5-year-old, she said, I didn't know how badly she was burned, and to realize that if you're burned a certain percentage of your body, you will die. I had no idea, she said. I was just trying to take care of my grandmother. And my grandmother had a very strong medicine. And she said, wave your hand like this over me. She said, sing to me, granddaughter, sing to me. And she said, I started to do this over my grandma. I started to sing over her. And eventually, she said, she was able to sleep. And I stayed with her for 2 days, and I gave her water. I just had a little bit of food, and I fed her, even though she was burned. And she eventually, she said, she started to be able to get up. And so this is a power, I think, that a lot of Indigenous people have inherited. Scientifically, people look at that now and they say that's impossible. And it's like, Isakija, we call this Chutachu Kai. They can change things. So as a scientific brain, we say that's impossible. But it is possible. And so oftentimes with stories, I like to tell impossible stories so that children have and mothers have this idea that you are a force for that, force for good. If we look all over the world today, what is the force that drives us apart? It's so powerful, it drives us apart. But underlying is a stronger force, and that draws us together. Look at, we have all the different nations here. Everybody enjoying stories. Everybody's here peacefully enjoying stories. So that's another thing I like to express before telling stories. So I'll tell you how I got my name. As I was saying at the beginning, my cousin and I were staying at my grandma's. We were in the smokehouse. She would make us go out and get rotting wood, and we'd have to carry this wood. We had a nice big wagon. We'd bring it home and back to her little cache. She had all her racks up there. She's drying meat. There was a meat cache and a fish cache. She didn't like to mix them up. I don't know why. She was very fussy that way. And she took me aside. She said, "You're going to be a woman, you know." I was only 11 years old. I thought, what? Woo. And she said, "Your cousin too. You're coming to a very powerful time in your life," she said. "I got to give you a name." She said, "So you come and work with me, your cousin's got to stay outside." So I said, okay. So I came in there and I thought, well, she's going to go bang, bang. There's your name. Have a good life. And during that time too, I'd heard of different people, maybe even the Algonquin nation, they have beautiful names, you know. I know the people in Saskatchewan, you know, they have Weeping Willow, Running Brook, you know, kind of romantic kind of names, you know. And I was thinking, maybe she's going to give me a name, Falling Snow, or I don't know. I was just thinking in my little immature mind. And so we got busy. I was bringing on all the rotting wood for her, and she said, "Pass me this," and she's cutting meat. She said, "You too." So we're working there. I don't know, maybe an hour passed. I thought, did she forget why she called me in here? Of course, I'm not going to say that, right? Just going on in my head. You should never underestimate the memory of a grandmother. She remembers everything. So we were working there for a while. Pretty soon she started telling me this story about the beaver. And as you were saying too, Simon, you know, beaver's teeth is very strong. But if a beaver cuts the tree all its life, pretty well all its life since the beginning, you know, when it's become a adult beaver, and even when they're little small beaver, they start chewing. One of the things you might not know is that the beaver's teeth keep growing. And if they don't gnaw the tree and cut the trees down, they might get the teeth under here and won't be able to open their mouth, right? So this keeps the teeth from growing too long. And so my grandma says to me, that's how you have to work. Just like the beaver, you keep your teeth short from all the work that you do. Ooh. And the beaver too takes care of his family, just like how Patrick was saying in his story, Daniel was saying in his story, eh? Take care of the family, repair the house. The mother beaver take care of all her little kittens there, or her little family inside the house. They catch all the food all summer. They're getting food for wintertime, willows, they take it in there. And one of the things my grandma said too, she said, and you know when the beaver's in danger, she said, you know, sometime a coyote come around, he's gonna jump on a beaver because he's hungry too. He likes beaver meat, I guess, she said. Wolf too, bear. He's gonna slap his tail like that. He means danger. That's you too, she said. When people in danger, you gotta slap your tail. I said, oh, okay. I didn't know what she was leading up to. I don't have a tail, I was gonna say, but I would never say that to my grandma. You know, do I have a tail? So she said, yeah, he slapped his tail like that. That means a danger. So you have to warn people what's gonna happen. He warns people, so you too. That's why I give you this name. It's O. Beaver woman. I was disappointed. Because I'm just getting to be a teenager, you know. I started to realize that I have a face. You know, I'm a girl. Just coming up to that age. And these teeth over here hadn't caught up to these teeth. So I was like, I look like a beaver. And I thought she was making fun of me, but you know, I love my grandmother so much, I just accepted it. Thank you. She said, now you go out there, you get your cousin, you tell your cousin, come in. Her too, she got to get a name. I want you to work hard like the beavers. Warn people of danger. Take care of your family. Fix your house. Keep your house nice. Bring food. All these kind of things. So I was thinking about all these things. I went outside. I said, Dinah, go get your name. And I didn't tell her, you know. So she goes in there. About a half an hour later, she comes out. Because I didn't tell her my name. When I came out, she comes out. She's got a funny look on her face. So we started to go out and get more wood for her grandma. I said, so? What did grandma give you? What's your name? She said, D-H-O. Huh? Porcupine. See, because she's thinking about some romantic name too, I guess. I said, D-H-O. She said, yeah. And truly, you know, my cousin is like my sister, cousin's sister, because we grew up together. She's got the soft belly of a porcupine. She might be a little prickly sometimes, but she's got a soft belly. And she moves slowly in life. So I just thought I would tell you those two little stories about how sometimes, you know, you work your way into your name. in the Indigenous community. Even if you don't have an Indigenous name, your name means something. And it's so beautiful, you know, to hear that your grandson is named Polar Bear. This is a very powerful name. And to learn the whole nature of this bear, and how they live, how they exist, and how they have to be strong. So I really want to thank all of you, particularly the women, the people here, the staff at Odawa, who they have hosted this and so beautifully organized everything for parents, for children, for listeners, for adults. I just really want to thank all of you. Masi. Thank you.
So that's all we have for this evening. Thank you for coming out. We do have a short survey from Ottawa Storytellers that we ask you to fill out. There's some at the exit when you're leaving on the table, and there's some at their table here with the red tablecloth. You can do it on paper, or you can also take a picture of the, whatchamacallit?
QR code.
The QR code. I was just gonna say hashtag, but I know it's wrong. You can take a picture of the QR code and also do the survey online. There is some leftover rice and butter chicken you feel free to take home, and we are also hosting again this Thursday. Thank you for coming out. Miigwech.
And thank Jennifer for being the hostess of the mostest. I just wanted to say about the survey. As you probably know, any kind of community activity costs money. So if you fill out the survey, this will be easy for us to put in another proposal so that this becomes an annual event. Okay, so I really encourage you to fill out these surveys for us.